Hello and welcome to another episode of the Help is Here podcast, brought to you by the Beyond Compulsion Academy. Today we're going to be talking through 7 misconceptions when it comes to porn addiction. All right, so the first one, you need to hit rock bottom to be ready to stop. Mary Portis, you have worked in addiction recovery over 35 years. Talk us through this misconception.
Yeah, this is popular. Everyone talks about this rock bottom thing, but you know, if you wait to hit rock bottom, you're probably going to take the addiction to your grave, really truthfully. But because this whole idea of being ready to stop, like you're somehow going to feel like you're totally ready to go after it and to stop the addiction when that's not true because until you change your neural pathways, you have the dilemma. You want to do it and you want to stop. So until you deal with the part of you that wants to do it, that part's never going to feel 100% ready. But when you can recognize that you have the dilemma, you want to do it and you want to stop, then you can get somewhere. But no, you don't need to hit rock bottom. And I think they use rock bottom too because like people don't really have good methods for stopping. So they think that if I'm real in a really, really, really bad place, then I'll be desperate enough that I'll actually be able to stop. But that actually can work against people as well.
Mm.
It's like, because if they feel so desperate that they have to stop, then they get into deprivation thinking as well. So it can work against them. But no, you don't need to be, really destitute and in a very horrible, horrible place to be able to stop an addiction. So
Yeah,
it's
that makes
it's a
sense.
misconception. Yep.
I think something that stood out to me about that is, first of all, yeah, a part of you will never feel ready, but then also the idea of how it could lead to you actually getting into deprivation if you did feel like you
Yeah.
hit rock bottom. And so then
Yeah.
the thought pattern is, I have to quit this. And it would
Mhm.
probably be something like, I can never, ever watch porn again because you feel so awful about it. You feel you can
Yeah.
never, ever watch porn again, which is deprivation thinking. And that's
Yeah.
actually going to work against you. And also, this is very much like, motivation and the willpower
Yeah.
stance, and it gets us totally away from being strategic, tapping into
Yeah.
the neural pathway to actually make changes in the brain correctly.
Yeah. And don't, when you think I can never watch porn again, don't misconstrue that into, oh, I can watch porn and get away with and not do it. And you know
Mm,
what I mean?
yeah.
You won't have to watch porn again. You know, you'll be in a position that you can actually deal with it in a way that you won't even want to watch porn again. So, yeah. Okay.
All
Number
right.
6.
Number 6.
Misconception number 6. Drum roll.
All right. Well, we got it on the screen, so anyone watching is like, it's kind of ruined the drum roll bit, me showing it on the screen there. But yeah, we've got number 6. You watch porn because of your sexual cravings. I want to start this one, Mary,
Go,
because
Tom.
yeah, I used to feel a lot of shame around my sexual desires and like there was something inherently, intrinsically wrong with me. And through your help, what I've come to understand is really it was a brain issue. It was an issue of addiction, compulsive desire. I'd created these brain maps where I connected porn to orgasm, and I've developed this psychological emotional dependency on a mind mood altering experience. But really, it doesn't actually have too much to do with sexual cravings, and you can change those brain maps, like you can change those neural pathways. And I think through my own experience of doing that, that's what's led to me realizing and knowing it's not really to do with your sexuality that much, and it's really to do with compulsive desire instead. So over to you, Mary. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think that so many of the guys we work with, they start with pornography so young that they don't even know what their normal sexual desire would develop into because they become addicted to this pornography on this screen and everything. And it's they don't even know what their sexual desire would feel like if porn wasn't involved. So yeah, I think it's very important to separate porn as an addiction, pornography use as an addiction, and then get, beyond that. And then, figure out your sexuality, your sexual desires and cravings and whatever, because you're not going to be able to figure out what that is for you when you're stuck in a porn addiction.
Mm,
Does that make
yeah.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually speaking to a guy just before this call who was talking about some trauma related stuff, and we are getting into sexuality a bit, and obviously that's as far as I'll go in terms of explaining the details on that. But it was interesting because he'd taken the approach of going to therapy for a lot of years and he had worked through some of the trauma side of stuff. But the way
Yeah.
we teach things is deal with the compulsive desire first, and then you'll get a lot clearer on maybe your sexual desires and fetishes and tastes and the trauma and all of that stuff, because otherwise sometimes your fetishes. Well, I can't say that word right now, but you know what I
That is,
mean.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes that can be like part of the addiction. Like that's the tolerance cycle.
for
For
real.
me, I've talked before about how I got into the femdom stuff and the sissy stuff. I look at content that didn't even align with my sexual taste. I look at even like all kinds of just weird stuff, really. And yeah, it didn't really have anything to do with my actual sexual desires. It was really just to do with that tolerance cycle and
Exactly.
that desire
Yeah.
for more, 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 that insatiable thirst, that desire that just is relentless. It
Yeah, more
refuses to be
extreme.
ignored.
It's
Yeah.
insatiable, so you go for more extreme. And
Mm,
with pornography, who knows what you're going to find out there, you know?
yeah.
And then you can beat yourself up even more, right? You know,
Mm,
what's wrong with me? All
yeah.
that. It's a terrible cycle.
Yeah, it creates the shame cycle as well.
Exactly.
You have all that
Yeah.
shame and you feel hopeless and like you're trapped and like nothing can ever change.
Yeah. So, kind of concluding on that one is like
Mm,
separate the porn addiction as if you had a heroin addiction,
mm,
really has nothing to do with actual sex with a partner in the real world.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree in terms of separating it out.
Yeah.
I definitely see it like heroin or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, number five then. If you're watching this, you may have seen me just skip and see four and three, the big reveal, not going so well. But anyway, number five,
Yeah.
you need to change your
The
lifestyle.
suspense. We need the suspense. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, number one's my favorite. So if you are watching, stick around
Yeah.
for number one because that's
Yeah.
like the big plot twist where we go
Drum
against what everyone else has
roll.
told you. Oh yeah, we'll have a drum roll for that one.
Yeah, we'll have a drum roll for number one.
Give us a drum roll now. No,
Yeah.
but number five then, you need to change your lifestyle. Talk us through this.
Oh, oh goodness. This one is just it's the misconception on how to deal with addiction in general is like there's something wrong with your lifestyle. You need to create healthy habits. You need to eat healthy. You need to exercise. You need to do all these things like, substitute a healthy
Mm,
behavior. That's super popular. We talk about that all the time. Try to distract yourself from it by, maybe fulfilling this emptiness inside you or whatever, and the meaning, you do it because you have this feeling of meaningless in your life, so just go fill your life with all these other things, and then somehow what, you're going to stop thinking about your addiction, your desires are going to go away. No, that's not going to happen. So, and a lot of people we work with, their life is okay except for their addiction, but
mm,
having the addiction destroys the lifestyle. So it's, changing your lifestyle is not necessary, but when you deal with an addiction, your lifestyle will probably change naturally
yeah,
because you're going to have so much mental energy to make choices that are good for you, and to not be living in the constant conflict of being in the addiction. So yeah, your lifestyle will change for the positive, but changing your lifestyle is not going to change your neural pathways of addictive desire.
yeah. So just to kind of give a bit more give a bit more of an example into that. So imagine you go to the gym, you journal, you meditate, you spend all day with friends, you do a bit of work as well. You have this really busy, sociable lifestyle, and then it comes 11 o'clock at night, you go to bed, and then you have an urge, and you have no idea what to do with that urge. So then you end up looking at porn. It's like, okay, well, your lifestyle may be brilliant, you may be on purpose every day. You may have loads of meaning in your life, but if you don't know how to deal with the urge, it doesn't really count for anything. And you often say it's the cart before the horse.
Yes.
It's the wrong way round, right? We deal with compulsive desire first, change those neural pathways, and then yeah, your lifestyle is probably going to be a lot better because you're out of the constant conflicts and you've got clarity on
Yeah.
how to move forward. Yeah.
And if you want to, start having like a meditation practice or do journaling or whatever, have some healthier habits or do some fitness or whatever, when you do those things, not as an attempt to not think about addiction, then you really can see the benefits of them as well.
Mm.
You can reap benefits rather than, feeling like you have to do this to try not to think about this addiction. It's very different.
Yeah, yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Like with the gym, for example, I've actually gone to the gym more in the last 12 months than I ever had before, but equally, I've thought about going to the gym less than I ever did before. Because in the past, it'd be like, oh, got some urges, I probably should go to the gym, or it'd be like, do I go to the gym? Do I not go to the gym? And I'd have like this whole sort of overthinking shit going on. Whereas
Yeah.
now that I'm out of the addiction, it's just like, I'm gonna go to the gym now, like in that moment, and I just go to the
Yeah.
gym,
And then I go to the gym and I feel good,
Yeah, yeah,
not,
cool.
now I go to the gym and I can distract myself for a while, but then the minute I leave the gym, now I'm thinking about porn again.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Doesn't really
Yeah.
work. All right, number four. No drum roll again for this one, I'm afraid. But we got you need to learn how to understand, identify, and deal with your emotions. Maybe I'll let you take the lead on this. I've made a
Well,
little purple, yellow, and black kind of
okay.
diagram here as well.
Again, people are not in in addictions because of their emotions. They have, a lot of negative emotions that are related to their addiction. And you can, and if you have an addiction, if you have some emotion, it's probably going to trigger your addiction. But you need to still, again, deal with the addiction. And then once you do that and change those pathways, if you have emotions, your go-to is not going to be, okay, well, I'm having this difficult emotion, so I'm going to go and use pornography, right?
Mm.
And also, let me see what you got here. Yeah, the addicted neural pathways, absolutely the root cause. So, um, and then the other thing is, there's the therapy that's going to be deal with the emotions and some or the traumas that you've had, that these difficult emotions and these traumas that you've experienced in your life are the reason that you have this addiction. They are
Mm.
the reason that you want to do this addiction. When the reason you want to do it is because you have addicted neural pathways that you developed at, for most of our guys, a very young age,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's why. And, there is some merit to people that have trauma or that have, difficult emotions that they experience because of trauma or childhood. They're maybe more susceptible to developing an addiction. But
Yeah.
again, identifying those traumas and those emotions, that will not change the neural pathway of compulsive desire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Make sense?
Absolutely. Like for anyone watching, you can see I've just put an arrow that points from shame, sadness, loneliness down to addictive neural pathways because most people think it's those symptoms. So feeling some discomfort, some emotion that's leading to them having these addictive neural pathways and acting on it when and that's what, most therapists are going to think. They're going to sort of delve into the shame, the sadness, the loneliness, try and solve that problem. Whereas we're doing things literally the opposite way around. We believe that it's the addictive neural pathways or the inability to deal with the addicted part of the mind and compulsive desire. So that inability to deal with those urges correctly, when you have that urge and you're just like, fuck it. It's like, okay, that's the problem. Like if you could deal with that, then you're probably not going to feel all the shame, sadness, loneliness because you're no longer going to be doing the thing that's actually causing all the shame, sadness,
Right.
loneliness.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the
Yeah. And this one
symptoms.
also, of course, speaks to like the the stress, anxiety, and depression, which they're
Mm,
treating people for, right? To be treated for your stress, your anxiety, and your depression, and then somehow you're not going to want to do this. No, doing this is causing those things, right? So
yeah.
deal with the addictive desire, and 99 times out of 100, the stress, depression, and anxiety are alleviated, lessened for sure, and most times alleviated because now you are in control of this thing that you've been out of control and's been ruining your life. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's really depressing and stressful
Yeah, absolutely.
and
I
anxiety
think
provoking. Yeah.
the other thing is like the symptoms of acting in this way. So yeah, having the sort of disconnection, frustration, loneliness, and so on. That can lead to people wanting to do it again. Don't get
Yeah.
me wrong, it can lead to them wanting to do it again,
Yeah.
but that's not the problem. It's like the wanting isn't the problem because you're going to
Right.
need to have the wanting to connect to the compulsive desire to actually change the neural pathways, which is what we
But
teach.
see, and that just comes back to the main misconception is that
Mm.
like if you want to, we got to find a way that you don't want to do it
Mm.
by distracting, going away, deal with the emotions, distract, substitute, whatever, to find a way to not want to do it rather than
Mm.
this wanting exists.
Mm.
Let's deal with this wanting.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yes. Yep.
going into that even more, one of the biggest misconceptions is that you need to remove your triggers and install these blockers. Again, it's trying to get away from the wanting, it's trying to deny the reality of the addiction. Whereas the truth is, like, you're born into this world and you get exposed to porn at a stupidly young age. That's not your fault. You live in this messed up society where porn's become normalized. So you get exposed at a super young age. You watch it, you have no idea the consequences. Your brain rewires to want it more because you get involved in this psychological emotional dependency on this mind mood altering experience, and then from that point you're going to continue to want it until you've dealt with that desire very directly and actually got into that desire. But then this idea of removing your triggers and installing the blockers denies anyone the opportunity to actually change those neural pathways, because now we're getting away from ever getting into that neural pathway of compulsive desire. So that's why this really doesn't work.
Yeah, and it's probably one of the most popular um ad it's very popular advice to remove the triggers and to install the blockers. We just recently had that we did that podcast about that woman that was maybe selling like the ultra blocking app,
Mm,
because it can block unlimited, sites or whatever. And it's one of the most popular things, and it's something that I think it's a really good misconception to address because of parents that are dealing with young boys, mostly, of course, um, to uh, to block them from things, from stuff on Instagram and
mm,
whatever, you know. But that's really, it's just not possible. It's not possible to keep kids off the internet, and kids can probably know more than parents do how to get around blockers and all this stuff,
mm,
so again, it's more going to be about teaching those kids about the reality of addiction, and specifically the reality of porn addiction and what that would mean to their life.
yeah,
And we have plenty of testimonials from men who have lived it and experienced it. So yeah, blockers is just going to be even more intriguing for them too, right? Why do you want to block me from this? They're going to be more intrigued to go figure out why you're trying to block them. So
yeah.
yeah,
If I
blockers are useless and create feelings of deprivation and more desire to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and also as someone who's lived inside of the porn addiction and knows this very well, I know for a fact if I was a 15-year-old nowadays and someone tried to block me from porn, I would find it very enjoyable trying to seek and find the porn in some creative way, because that's what the addicted part of my mind would undoubtedly do. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about it. And we've seen that with loads of guys as well who have
Yeah.
tried the blockers in the past. They just get really, really creative, end up in a Walmart parking lot with the Wi-Fi on and
Right.
on
Yeah.
their Nintendo and all these different crazy things, right? So
Right.
you'll always find a way to get porn anyway, because you can't deprive yourself of it.
We've heard it all. Yes, of
Hmm.
course. Yeah. Blockers.
All right.
Blockers.
Next one we got addiction is a life sentence. So number two, we're getting close to number one now, which we will have a big drum roll for. I say that, I don't know where the drum roll's coming from, but I don't know. Maybe we can get
I
like
gotta see if I got a bongo around here or something.
I think I'll ask my editor, to get a drum roll for number one.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be
That'd be
fun.
cool. We'll try that out.
Yeah.
All right. Number two,
Yeah.
addiction is a life sentence. So our alternative to this is that permanent mental freedom is possible.
Yeah. This one
Yeah.
is just, I mean, it's so driven home in all of like, and television, just the overall message out there. And I think, with therapy too, because we had our guy Mike, who we just did the podcast with,
Mm,
therapist telling him, you're going to have to deal with this for the rest of your life. And it's like, to make people feel that hopeless and helpless around this addiction, and all the messaging you see out there with like the way that addiction is represented in television dramas and things like that, where people are going to meetings 20 years later because they have a crisis, and oh my god, they're on the edge and they're gonna use, it's just, this message is like, it's people are absorbing this and thinking, oh my god, I'm never going to be okay with this. And like Mike said in the podcast, he said, no, I'm not going to accept that.
mm.
I'm not going to accept that. I'm never going to get past this, and I'm going to deal with this for the rest of my life. We're like, yes, good for you. Because when you go after it and change those neural pathways, that neuroplasticity is so real. It does change. The desire does diminish and then disappear, so
Yeah.
you can be permanently mentally free. But all the messaging out there in the world is to the contrary. So yeah, don't believe it.
Yeah.
Misconception. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And we did a
Yeah.
call last night. Let's not mention his name because I know he wanted to keep it like very private. But
Yeah.
we did the video with the guy last night, and we put it inside of our online program where a guy had gone like over 6 months now without consuming any porn at all, and he was saying that he's got to a point now where he'll go days or weeks and he just honestly won't even think about the thing. And he specifically said last night, didn't he, that like sometimes
Yeah.
I'll drop him a message and be like, "Hey, how's it going?" Like, have you had any urges lately or something
Yeah.
like that? And then he'd like look at the message and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, that thing, right? That,
Oh
that
yeah.
problem I used to
Yeah.
have." So,
That
yeah,
problem I used to have. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
it was
cool.
funny. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
Love it
addiction
so
is a
much.
life sentence. Yeah, it's such a misconception. I mean, if you want to like read read up on neuroplasticity as well, then you can do that, and you will be able, if you go deep enough into it, you'll be able to find some evidence that the brain changes, and hopefully that can provide you some relief. But I think the best way to do it is just experience it. Like once you've experienced it, you'll just know that it's not a
Yeah.
life sentence.
And I want to, before we drum roll, I want to add one more thing to that, is like going and distracting and substituting and changing your lifestyle and doing all these other things. That's not going to change those addictive pathways. You might create new pathways where now you learn to do some creative thing that you didn't know how to do before, or whatever, when you try not to think about it, or you learn how to use the weights at the gym, or whatever you're doing, or it's that will create some neural pathways, some new ones, but it doesn't change the ones that need to change, the
Mm,
ones of addictive desire. Yeah.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's
Yeah,
what we teach. So yeah,
it's a good
that's the good
point.
news. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. I think like if we really break it down, it's like the biggest misconception, which is prevalent throughout most of these seven misconceptions, is this concept that it's basically getting you away from actually dealing with the real problem. Like the real
Yeah.
problem is compulsive desire, and like
Yeah.
there's a part of your brain that's gonna want to look at porn, and you can change that part of your brain. Like that just can't happen for you.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah. All right,
Drum roll.
final
You
one.
already showed the first misconception, but okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Anticlimactic here.
We'll have a lot of
Drum roll.
listeners though who haven't seen me accidentally click into that first one, but if we
You
could get a
did.
drum roll, then that'd be great.
We forgive you. It's okay.
All right, let's go into it then. Number
Oh,
one,
yes.
number one. All right, I've not really created any images for this. I've just wrote it in a massive text, but it's so
Yes.
important.
Yes.
It's such a big misconception, and it's
Yeah.
probably the thing that kept me trapped for like 9 or 10 years. Like I wish I had have learned this sooner. I wish someone had have just said to me very straight, like relapse is not part of recovery, because that is the misconception. Relapse is part of recovery. And
Yeah.
like when you're out of this whole thing, like you've changed your brain, you realize how dumb this is as well. Because
Yeah.
like the relapse is the problem. Like
Yeah.
you clearly got a problem if you're relapsing. And I remember, like, can you remember, Mary, when we first met? So we had that call, and you just listened to me on the podcast like a few weeks ago or something. And at that
Yeah.
point, I was still in the addiction. So I was talking about how I'd relapsed like not that long ago. You listened to that episode, and after the podcast, you were like to me, "Look, Tom, you're in an addiction right now. You relapsed a few weeks ago." And because I was in the addiction and I was so deep into it, and I didn't even have the awareness to realize how big the problem was, I was like, nah, like, I'm good. Like, I've just done this 3 month no fap streak. Like, I don't need your help. Like, go away. It's funny, but it's like I was relapsing. I was clearly in the addiction. Like, it makes so much more sense now.
Yeah, and two, and the idea, see, it's like this comes from that our kind of we baby people along, this is your just your journey,
Mm,
and this you got to be compassionate with yourself. If you slip, the helplessness around this idea of slipping is just like, no, you're not. There's never a slip that is in your control. You slip, you fall, right? That's not in your control, and but it's this idea that we can't say what it is. We can't talk about things in a way that really is direct and states what the problem really is, because we're living in a society where that's like politically incorrect. You got to just be like, okay, you're okay, you just did this thing, it's okay. But the thing is you do that, and when you have the addictive part of your mind in the driver's seat, hell, it's going to just step on the gas straight into, oh yeah, relapse is part of recovery, let's go, let's go get the thing. So you can't be all, compassionate and all this other stuff with your addictive part of your mind. No, that's just not gonna, unless you want to stay in addiction, go ahead, but relapse is part of relapse. And every time you engage relapse, you're deeper in it. And then you do all these no fap streaks. And then oh, well, relapse is part of recovery. So I'm going to relapse again. And then I'm going to go on another streak and blah, blah, blah. Every time you do that, you intermittently reinforce and you're deeper in, you're deeper in, you're deeper in. It's not part of recovery. Recovery is when you are able to stop the behavior and stay
mm,
stopped correctly, you know,
yeah,
and not have to engage or relapse, right? And that's what we give people the power to do. You don't
mm,
have to go back to this thing, and
yeah,
that's recovery. And changing those neural pathways, permanent mental freedom, that's recovery.
yeah.
Recovery is not like, oh, I'm just going to be in and out of my addiction indefinitely. That's relapse,
Yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah.
another analogy to sort of hopefully get this across even clearer. And if you're watching, it should be pretty clear on your screen by this point, because you just got it in massive letters. But let's say you had gone to prison and you'd done something wrong, you go to prison, and you come out of prison and you do the same offense. Like, let's say you've gone to prison for like shoplifting, you come out of prison, you shoplift again, you're back in prison, and then you're kind of just in the cycle of sort of shoplifting, going back in prison, coming in, coming out. That's kind of like relapsing and then not
Yeah.
relapsing for a bit and then relapsing. It's like the moment you're back in prison, you're in the addiction. Like, you're back in the prison of your own minds.
Yeah.
And if you're continuing to shoplift, well, you're still acting as a criminal. So
Yeah.
you don't have to act that way for the rest of your life, but
Yeah.
it only stops once it stops. You know?
Can you put at the top of this misconception and put a big X through it? People think we're not touting that relapse is part of recovery.
Yeah,
Misconception.
yeah, it is a big misconception. There we go. Relapse
Yeah,
is part of recovery.
not true.
All right, cool.
Not
Well, yeah,
true.
hopefully these 7 misconceptions can help someone. I
Yeah.
think one of the main reasons of us doing this is also to provide a bit of like hope that it's not your fault that you've ended up here, like struggling with this addiction, because I was in it for nine plus years, and I was consuming everything I could. I was trying my very, very hardest. I was doing everything I was told to do by all the no-fap gurus out there and the therapists and everyone else, right? And nothing worked for me. And now hopefully you can see like, yeah, the things you've been trying haven't worked for a reason. Like they fully conflict and go against the things that I believe now to be true. So yeah, I mean there's hope that you can overcome this. It's just
Yeah,
you need to sort of go against the crowd really, because the crowd are doing it wrong in our opinion anyway.
right. Help is here. And like Mike
Mm.
said, hope is here. I
Yeah.
don't know if he said it by accident, but it's true. Help is here, hope is here.
All right. Cool. We'll wrap it up there then. Yeah, thanks a lot for watching or
Thanks, Tom.
listening. And
Yeah,
yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Cheers. Bye bye.
bye.